Hello, today we will be discussing topics like refugees, internally displaced people or persons, stateless persons, migrants, and other related concepts. So, this is just a short video to understand the differences between all these concepts. So, before we start with refugees, let us start with the concept of what we call as an asylum seeker. Now, an asylum seeker is an individual who is seeking international protection in countries with individualized procedures. An asylum seeker is someone whose claim has not yet been finally decided on by the country in which he or she has submitted it. Now, the basic understanding is to be, or the concept which we need to understand is that suppose somebody is fleeing through persecution, we will come to the notion of refugee, then you will understand it better. Like, suppose if there is a problem in one country, that person or a group of people are actually going from one country to another country. So once they reach the borders of another country, so they usually submit some kind of documents or some kind of, they seek refuge or asylum. So whoever is having the status that somebody has asked for or has submitted his or her documents that we want to leave this country and enter your country or something like that. So that status, till the time he or she has been provided with the status of refugee, that status is understood as an asylum seeker. So it will be very easy for all of us to understand then that every refugee must have been an asylum seeker, but not all asylum seekers get refuge in another country. So this distinction is something which you should understand. Now, similarly, if we go now to the next concept, that is refugee. So a refugee is basically a person who has fled their country of origin and is unable or unwilling to return because of a well-founded fear of being persecuted because of their race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. So usually, if you see that it is precisely because of persecution that somebody or some group is facing persecution, or there are certain conditions which are not favorable and they want to flee from one country to another country. So that gives rise to, or that is one of the reasons, or in fact, this is the 1951 definition. It is quite a definition which has been challenged, and this convention needs to be re-edited because it's not only because of, say, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion that people flee from one place or they are facing some kind of persecution. It is also because of ecological disasters. It is also because of economic reasons. So we will be dealing those things as well. So this present definition is not a very comprehensive definition. It needs to be edited. It needs to be more comprehensive by nature, where problems of ecology, environment, economy, all these things needs to be included. The concept of economy is also playing a big role in making people go from one place to another place. So an economic migrant is, you can see that this is a very newly formed understanding, is someone who leaves his or her country of origin purely for financial and or economic reasons. Economic migrants choose to move in order to find a better life, and they do not flee because of persecution. And they are treated as economic migrants, but soon we will see that this definition of refugee will be expanded, and these people will also get this status. Because if you understand, refugee is a status which enjoys certain kind of international rights. Neither asylum seekers nor economic migrant will have those kind of rights. Therefore, they do not fall within the criteria for refugee status and are not entitled to receive international protection. So, even if you are going from one country to another country for some kind of economic reasons or some kind of financial reasons, and even if you are granted the status of moving from one country to another country, but then you will not have that kind of rights which a refugee may enjoy. So, therefore, there is a claim in the international arena that even people who are running away from one place to another place because of economic reasons may be included. Similarly, environment and ecology and all these issues will also be included soon. Now, there is also another concept called resettlement. Now, what is a resettlement? Resettlement is the transfer of refugees from the country in which they have sought refuge to another state that has agreed to admit them. Now, suppose if there is a country X and in that country X, there are people from country Y who have entered, and they are enjoying the status of refugees, or they are staying as refugees over there. Now, what can happen is that X is overcrowded, or there are some problems which are facing. So another country, says Z, can ask for that. Okay, we will like to take some refugees from your country. So that understanding is called resettlement. So the people from country Y have actually gone to country X, but now they are deported or resettled in another country Z. So that understanding is called as resettlement. The refugees will usually be granted asylum or some other form of long-term resident rights, and in many cases will have the opportunity to become citizens. However, the number of resettlement places has decreased over the last couple of years, with a significant gap now existing between those identified by UNHCR in need of resettlement and the number of places being made available by states. So this is the sad or sorry story, but still this thing also happened, and that is what is we understand as resettlement. Now, who is a stateless person? This is another understanding. A stateless person is a person who, under national laws, does not have the legal bond of nationality with any state. Article 1 of 1954 Convention relating to the status of stateless person indicates that a person not considered a national or citizen automatically under the laws of any state is stateless. Now, what does it mean? Like, suppose there is a civil war which is going on in one country, and because of that the diplomatic relations has been broken by the international community, or since the civil war is going on, so the international community has said that okay, we do not consider this as a country. Right now, if there is a person of that country in some another country, so since the diplomatic relations have broken, so that person will be considered as a stateless person because his state or his nation or his country, in whatever way you will like to put it, is not recognized by the international community. So this happens many a times. That person is called as a stateless person. Similarly, there is something called IDP. IDP is internally displaced persons or people. Now, what is this internal displacement? Internal displacement is the involuntary movement of people inside their own country. So the point which we need to notice is that it is an involuntary movement. Now, involuntary movement means that people are not moving from one place to another place because of their will. They are forced to move from one place of another to another place precisely because there are certain conditions which has taken place because of some kind of internal tensions, some genocide, or some kind of persecution, that people move, and the movement is now not from one country to another country, rather than from one place to another place in the same country. So refugees are people who are moving from one country to another country. However, internally displaced people are people who are moving from one place to another place in the same country or in the same state, as we will like to say. This movement may be due to a variety of causes, including natural or human-made disasters, armed conflict, or situations of generalized violence. So there are a lot of reasons which can be included or which are there for internally displaced people. So this is also something which we should understand. Now, the problem is that these people are not having the status of, again, refugees. Like, suppose somebody is an internally displaced person. So they have moved from one place to another place because of problems, but then they do not have the rights which refugees have. And you might be aware of that refugees have a lot of rights, right? So those rights are provided to them by the international communities, by the United Nations, and so on. But internally displaced people are purely the subjects of that state only, even if they have moved from their place of origin to another place, but still they do not have those kind of international protections. There is one more concept which we call as refugee camp. Now, what is a refugee camp? A refugee camp is a plot of land temporarily made available to host refugees fleeing from an armed conflict. In temporary homes, UN agencies, particularly UNHCR and other humanitarian organizations, provide essential services in refugee camps and education. These camps are ideally located at least 50 kilometers away from the nearest international border to deter camp raids and other attacks on its civilian occupants. So these are also certain things which are formed. because of them. So these are basically certain general concepts which we deal with refugees, IDPs, economic migrants, and so on. And we need to understand these concepts. So these concepts, once they are clear, then we can go for the further discussion. Thank you.